So welcome to today's coffee talk. I'm Margrét, and with me today is a very special guest, Professor Alan Benson, who is Associate Professor at the Department of Work and Organizations, and he's an expert in the economics of HR, compensation, and incentives. And the reason I invited you to the video cast today is your recent paper called Potential and the Gender Promotion Gap. And it caught my eye, and I don't want to steal away the punchline. So maybe I can just start by asking you what you studied and then what you found.
Thanks, Margaret, and I'm so glad to be here today. So in our paper, we were interested in this problem that organizations have, which is that they want to try to distinguish who is a great performer versus who's a great candidate for promotion. And so one of the ways they do that is by tools like 9box or something else, where they ask managers to rate their subordinates as either high, medium, or low performers, or high, medium, or low on their potential. And this kind of pigeonholes workers into maybe like a great individual contributor who might not be a good candidate for promotion, or maybe someone who is a great potential manager, but even if they're not performing well in their current role. What we found using data from a major national retailer was that the managers are systematically underestimating the potential of their female subordinates. Or in other words, women were consistently outperforming their managers' prior ratings of their potential. And we think this is a big problem because tools like 9box or other succession planning tools and talent management tools used by organizations oftentimes ask managers to rate their subordinates on these two dimensions, potential and performance. And our study suggests that really you shouldn't be asking managers to do this because managers are going to bring their biases, particularly when they're estimating the potential of their female subordinates, and that could translate into worse promotion and developmental opportunities.
Okay, so really, if I just reframe what you said, so what I heard was that organizations are using these scales to kind of label their employees as low, medium, or high potential, and the bias is manifesting in a way that women are less likely to be labeled as high potential. Is that the core of it?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So, for example, in our setting, we find women are about 50% more likely than men to be in this category as high performers with low potential, and that's absent of any evidence that we could find that women are actually have lower potential than men when they do, or lower performance when they do get promoted.
Do you have any theories or ideas of why? Is it just our implicit biases that are causing us to, label, or being less labeled to label women as high potential? Is it maybe the gender of who's rating? Do you have any theories, or did you look into why this might be happening?
Yeah, there's a lot of potential candidates for why managers might be underestimating their female subordinates' potential. One goes back to a theory called congruity theory, which is that managers tend to think about men when they think about great potential leaders. When they talk about the adjectives that make good leaders, they tend to be the same adjectives that they use when they're describing masculine traits as opposed to female traits. Another could be that there's evidence that men are more likely to complain to their managers when they get lower scores. And so just by virtue of trying to avoid conflict with their subordinates, they might be allocating higher ratings to potential ratings to the men. We also find in our data that men are more likely than women to leave when they get low potential ratings. I think everybody knows that these potential ratings are very important for promotion decisions. And so managers might be kind of thinking strategically in terms of how they allocate these ratings, knowing that if they rate a female low on potential, they're likely to stay. Whereas if they rate, really great male subordinate as low on potential, they'd be more likely to quit.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So then what should we do? If I was in charge of a retail organization, what should I be doing obviously this isn't working, so what should I be doing to fix it?
I think one of the interesting things that organizations try all sorts of things to get around this. One is you mentioned like assigning women to female managers. We find that women actually rate everybody lower. And so even though women are slightly less biased, that's not necessarily a particularly attractive solution. It could be that you should assign women to work under superstars, but we find that those superstar managers tend to be more biased in their ratings. Instead, what we really find is that a lot of women are concentrated as being into this one box of being like high performers with low potential. But even when they do get promoted, um, perhaps they just catch a lucky break, and they're the exception. They actually turn out to do pretty well. They turn out to be pretty good managers. And so I think, like at a high level, what organizations can do is they could try to suspect, like be skeptical that these women who are being categorized as high performers with low potential, should just be ignored. And instead, maybe the organization could instead try to allocate more attention to the type of developmental opportunities that would perhaps make them think about becoming managers, and ultimately try to get more of them promoted into those leadership roles where they can contribute.
So this is connected, and correct me if I don't remember this correctly, but I think you have another study that was focusing on promoting your best performer. Do I remember that correctly?
That's right.
Because
Yeah.
this is related, right? A little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the reasons why organizations use ratings of performance versus potential is because organizations don't necessarily want to take the best salesperson and turn them into a manager, or take the best doctor and turn them into the hospital CEO. So I think there's a good reason why organizations use these two dimensions. I just think organizations should also be skeptical that they're going to get an unbiased answer when they ask their managers to rate their subordinates on their potential.
Okay, sounds good. So might one solution be not thinking about it as potential, but managerial qualities? Should we be rating our employees on, managerial
That's a
something?
great question. That's a great question. And I think, there's this lesson from like IO psychology that like the best predictor of future performance is past performance in a similar role. But this could be a problem for promotions because you're inherently doing something that is a little bit different oftentimes. And so then I think this goes back to your question now, or your observation that maybe we should try to have better tools for predicting who's going to make a good manager. And so, for example, in some of my other work, we show that for salespeople, at least, like being involved in more complex sales that involve working across teams and working across multiple people who are credited on the same sales, they actually tend to make better managers than simply the lone wolves who go out and make sales all by themselves. So I think there could be solutions in terms of like psychological tests. There could be solutions in terms of just giving people opportunities to lead and seeing whether they succeed. There could be opportunities in terms of kind of latently using some of the data that we already collect in our organizations to see if some of those indicators would better predict whether someone's going to be a good manager.
Awesome. I think we're right after 8 minutes, so we'll have to stop here. But thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. This is really a pleasure. And thanks for the wonderful questions. And I really look forward to hearing what other people think as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.